One of the most important aspects of cinematography is lighting. If you don't know how to light your scene, it doesn't matter how expensive your camera is, what lenses you use, how good looking your actors are, your shot is going to look like garbage. There is a lot about light to understand, from a light's softness or hardness to its color to its intensity. But today, the quality of light we are going to be looking at is the direction. Where do I put a light and where do I point it? We start to understand.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
We start understanding a lighting setup by first understanding a simple 3-point lighting setup. This is really the basis of any kind of lighting setup, be it for an interview or for dramatic production or any kind of lighting setup you can think of. Any other kind of setup is really just a variation of 3-point lighting. A 3-point lighting setup consists of 3 points: the key light, the fill light, the backlight, and then there's also a 4th light to consider, that would be the background light. Typically, you want to set up your subject as far from the wall behind them as possible. This allows you to adjust the light on your subject separately without light bleeding onto the background so that you can have more control over the lighting ratios. The key light is your main light. It is typically placed to the front and to the side at an angle from your subject. Now, if you go too far to the side, you'll end up with a lot of shadow on your subject. But if you go too far to the front, your image will look pretty flat and boring. A good default for how high you want it is for the light to be able to shine down at about a 45-degree angle. Now, the fill light is placed on the other side of the subject from the key light, and it's meant to fill out the shadows caused by the key light. This way, it maintains some of the drama of those shadows caused by the key light while still lighting it up enough to see what's there. Oftentimes, people don't actually even use a real light for the fill light, but they use one of these reflectors to kind of bounce the light of the key light right back onto the subject and fills up those shadows. The 3rd point of your 3-point lighting setup is your backlight, which is the light that you saw burn out at the beginning of this video.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
The backlight is placed at the complete opposite end of the subject from your key light. This can cause a nice outline around your subject and separates them from the background. And finally, you have your background light. This could be just a light shining right onto your background, or if you want to make it more interesting, you can put a Cuckolorius or a cookie right in front of your light, which is just another fancy term for a board with holes in it. Now, you could use that if you want to make it look like there's light coming through curtains or through a tree or through a window or something, or if you just want a nice cool pattern on the wall. Or you could use some practical lights, which is really just a fancy term for some light sources that are placed directly into the frame of your shot. You can even use 3-point lighting outdoors where the sun is way too bright for it to make much difference for you to bring your own lights anyways. One of my favorite outdoor setups is to use the sun as a backlight, then using a bounce board, bounce the sunlight back onto the subject as the key light, then just using the light that is naturally bouncing off everything outside to fill out the shadow. Now, the key to getting different looks is by tweaking and playing with the ratios of these 4 different lights. For example, you can bring up the fill light to match the intensity of the key light. That's known as a double key, which is personally not my favorite look because it takes out a lot of the drama from those shadows, but it is apparently a popular enough look for it to get its own name, so do with that what you will. Or you could dim the fill light down or even take it completely away to really bring up the drama of those shadows. Or if you want to be super dramatic and make your subject look mysterious or untrustworthy, you could dim or get rid of the key light as well as the fill light, and then that'll kind of obscure the viewer's view of their face, and that naturally just makes people feel like, I can't trust you. Think about Captain America's entrance into Infinity War, where he starts out like super mysterious in the shadows, and then he walks forward and then you can see his face and you're like, oh, I know you, I can trust you now. Or there's a very specific look that I've seen in a couple movies where the key light is just shining on people's eyes, which you can achieve that by setting up flags, which is really just black boards that blocks out pieces of the light. Or if you want a silhouette, you're gonna leave your background light on, but get rid of the key light, the fill light, and the backlight, so that all you see is just shadows on your subject, but you still see the background. Now, with story-driven production, it is a good idea to keep your light motivated. What I mean by motivated is that it at least appears to be coming from a light source that you would expect to see in that environment. For example, I might not put a backlight on somebody just because I know that it's something that I'm supposed to do, but I might position a person next to a window, like in this shot, so that it looks like the blue light is coming from the moon shining through the window, even though there's no way that the moon would actually be that blue or that bright bright in real life. Or in this reverse shot where it looks like the backlight is coming from these practical lights in the background, when in reality it's coming from a color matched light just above the frame. There is so much more about light that I would love to share with you, but this video is already way too long. So I'm gonna end it here, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to talk about other lighting setups and other qualities of light in future videos. So until then, you're welcome.